Before we do this, how many young players are in the audience? Raise your hands. There you are. Wonderful. We had an enormous number of questions, and I was going to say, you know, that it'd be called something like the Barnes Q&A, soon to come out in paperback. So thanks to you all. First question, why did you give up the cello and take up the horn? Do you want to answer that? No. Actually, how many hours a day do you practice?
How many hours a day do I practice? Well, there are these levels of practice, especially when you teach quite a bit, as I do. And so I sort of have like 5 different levels of readiness in my mind. If I'm playing an hour a day and then I go teach 10 hours, that's level 1. And if I don't practice 5 hours a day. Level 5 doesn't mean 5 hours a day, but 3 hours a day. 3 hours a day is a good regimen for a horn player, and they should be morning, noon, and night, if at all possible, so the lips can rest in between.
Did you hear all that? How do you support the horn when you play standing up? Do you hold it? Do you hold your right hand differently than you would if you were sitting down?
Yes, you do. You sort of make a shelf with your hand in the most relaxed way you can. If you were sitting down, you would sort of rest the hand in the bottom of the bell, and perhaps rest the horn on your leg. But when you're standing, you sort of turn the hand around, hopefully in a natural way, and it just makes a nice shelf for the bell.
Does it change the sound a lot when you have your hand there?
No, it doesn't really. No, like 2%.
But if you stick it way in there, which
well, yeah.
We have one for Edward before we do though. How do you reach the high notes without straining or using much effort before we talk to Ed? He has no trouble with the high notes. He's straining right now.
Well, there's an old story about Louis Armstrong where somebody asked him how does he play high notes. And Louis Armstrong had great high notes. He was a fantastic high trumpet player, in addition to being the most wonderful musician of his time. But he used to say, I press down on my guts and I blows. And I think that's a very good description.
Since you mentioned Louis Armstrong, and this is a question that whoever wrote this, when we're at the reception afterwards, please ask this, but someone wrote about your recording of a Louis Armstrong piece. So, yeah. I know we're leaving that kind of up in the air, but well, anyway, you played jazz on that. Did you? They wanted to know if you played a regular horn or a different kind of a horn.
Oh no, I played this horn, and actually, when I did the transcription, I did the transcription myself. It was of a Hot 5 group. Yes, I'm in the Barrel. And when I did the transcription, I didn't quite realize that I was going to be playing the Armstrong solo. And boy, were those big shoes to fill. I practiced that for months. And then you're listening to him, and you realize what he's doing. You know, you listen closer, and then you record yourself. It's nowhere near Armstrong. You record some more, you listen to him some more, and he was just so fantastic. So I learned a lesson from that. Be careful who you steal from then.
Do you enjoy accompanying the horn? No. Does accompanying the horn differ from accompanying other solo instruments?
Absolutely.
And if yes, how?
The nature of the response with the tongue, one has to give a little more time for the attacks to speak. One has to support in a very fluid way to help with the air support so it doesn't become stuck and not too loud.
That's a very good question. One more here before we go back. There you go. It is thoroughly enjoyable to watch you play the piano. Are you having as much fun as it appears?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. We rehearsed these backstage. Okay. Just a couple more here. Our son plays horn in the Pittsburgh Symphony. The horn section pulls the slides out whenever they have a rest. Why do you just tip the horn up and down, to empty it? Why don't you pull all the slides out?
I actually am very bad about taking care of my horn, and the slides, they don't come out that easily. I always tell my students, don't do what I do. Take care of your horn. So that's honestly why I do it.
And two last questions. One technical. Obviously, there's some horn players here who want to know what kind of horn this is, your mouthpiece, and that sort of thing.
Right. This is an American horn, a Con 8D. And when I was growing up, I'm from LA, all the studio players, and I studied with the great studio players, they all played 8Ds, and they still play 8Ds. European instruments, German instruments like the Alexander or the Schmidt or whatever, are fantastic instruments, and they've actually been becoming more popular in the States. But because this is the kind of horn that I grew up on, it's what I'm really comfortable playing, and I still have that LA sound in my ears, that Hollywood sound. So I feel very, very comfortable on this horn. I did, when I was in my 20s, I spent about 10 years playing every horn under the sun, or what felt like every horn under the sun. I played a Schmidt, I played an Alex, I played a Crispy, I played a Geyer for a while, a couple of Geyers, and then I gravitated back to the 8D because I realized that no matter what sound was in my ear, this was the way I was comfortable using my air, the way that this horn takes the air. So so I sort of returned. I came full circle after that decade of experimenting.
And the mouthpiece?
The mouthpiece, you can get it from John Stork. It's a 6-bore, and it's not a C cup, it's a little narrower. And it actually, I got it from an old New York freelancer, Ray Alonji, who was a great player. And I just tried it one day and liked it. I've been playing it ever since.
And that bell comes off too, doesn't it?
That bell comes off. In this day and age of airplane travel, that is very important. You have to be able to take the bell off, and then you can fit it under the seat in front of you. It goes in a case like this, and it looks like a big camera or a bowling bag or something. But if you didn't have this, the airlines would just, they'd just have you over a barrel in a moment. It'd be terrible.
You hope you don't forget to put it back on for the second time.
Definitely.
But while you're doing that, one last question. And if you want to chime in, Edward, you can. But there are a lot of young people here, as we know. A lot of people who would love to play professionally. What would you tell him? And if it's different from what he says, I'll ask you.
I think in the music business, as in everything these days, the pace of change is amazing. It's just I think when you look at what young people are up against and how they have to find their way somehow, it seems, from my vantage point, it seems like harder than ever and that kind of thing. I think the main thing to say is it was always like that. It was always like that. When I was young, many years ago, the old guys would say, "Oh, you should have been here in New York when the NBC Symphony was going, or the Radio of the Air, or Firestone." Those were the days. They would say, and they would say, "There's no work now," and it was true. There was sort of a diminuendo going on there, and it's true that it's tough. I mean, you go to an audition, a second horn audition in Kansas City, and we're not in Kansas City. No, we're not in Kansas. You go there, and there's 150 people auditioning for that one chair. So it's tough, and they're all good. Yeah. So it's a little bit like if you get an orchestral job, it's a little bit like you've won the lottery. It's very difficult. But I think the really important thing is that most musicians don't play in big symphony orchestras. Most musicians sort of cobble together a life. They put together a life with things that they love. And it could be some soloing, it could be some chamber music, it could be some orchestral playing, some teaching. You get a mixture. And the important thing is just to keep hanging on to what you love, because as a musician you have to put up with all sorts of stuff. You know, conductors and agents and all sorts of stuff, right? But if you're doing what you love, you're gonna manage. Music is all about desire. So that's what I would say. What do you say?
If you want to be a soloist, get a good publicist.
Anything else? Well, thank you both. Thank you for the questions. Thank you all.